Okay, everybody, as promised, some highlights from last year. This is pretty rough. I'm going to talk through them relatively quickly. Feel free to pause, and hopefully there's enough resolution here you can see what's going on. But many of the projects that I got last year were PowerPoint. I'm not sharing any Tableau projects or story maps. I'm just going to kind of fly through some of the images that I had and show you how they were laid out. This first project was dealing with immigration. You can see, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but at the top, this is one of the stories in Tableau. So starting with maps and kind of showing, okay, those in need are closer than you think is the main title. Where are so many refugees headed? So this is the region of origin and how many people have left, and then where they're going to. And I've told many of you about the homemade flow map that was made. The colors, this is the legend here. This is showing the country of origin and where they were going to. And the arrows here were scaled manually just by dividing the width of the arrow and making it proportional to the numbers of people. So kind of homemade. In Tableau, it's possible to use country outlines as your marks. I put a demo on last week's Canvas page about that, but how many refugees have come to Utah since 2010, the countries with some population numbers. And then a bar chart. You know, what are we doing to help? This is a question unrelated to the data. The bar chart is pretty exaggerated, but annotations and footnotes up in the title up here. Okay, second project. This one was meant to print at, I think, like 8 feet wide. It was going to be hung up in one of the fraternity houses, I think. So you'll see here that the text is very small, the labels are very small, and that gets a little bit lost when you look at it at this scale. And maybe it's that this text, if you printed this at 8 feet wide, is just way too big. So really think about your final format size and how big the text needs to be. If this is your smallest text label, that should carry through, and these labels should be the same size. All this text should be the same size as this text. And then, you know, kind of think about your title and how big that stuff should be. This is that plot blown up. So I think a lot of time was spent here. Who's responsible for CO2 emissions? These circles are scaled by, again, proportional. And this was meant to say, look, you know, we are the 1% that's causing this problem. So this was the moral of the story, but I think a lot of time was spent getting this done and very little attention was given to these plots here. So make sure you're kind of giving equal attention to everything. This one also was meant to print very large. It's a static infographic. I think it was probably set up at about 2 by 4 feet or something like that. So, but I think this one does a much better job of scaling all the text so that it works as a whole piece. I won't walk through it entirely, but the idea here was to take the individual countries and scale. Here's a key. It was forestation. So over time, there's a before and after, like I can't remember what the years were, but it's 2 different years. Oh, forest area changed since 1990. If forest cover has gotten bigger or smaller. So it's kind of a clever way to do that. Color encoding the value here, and then the 2 different size squares for overall forest cover and what the change is, with a really unique legend for something that was really fundamentally invented. A timeline and then supporting plots. You can see that trail. Remember I told you about the mark trail that you can make. So this was showing change in forest cover over time as a scatter plot. So supporting elements there. This is a different project dealing with how harvest crops have changed over time and then tying it into food security. They're very straightforward plots, but they're clean, and they had some annotations on the side to walk people through it. Pretty straightforward. Oh yeah, none of the annotations translated, sorry. Worldwide, there's been a trend of fertilizer being used to increase cereal crop yield. With all these improvements, there should be no hunger, right? Wrong. And then bringing it into food security. And instead of showing food security rates, this student calculated the change in rate over time between 2008 and 2018 and put it on a diverging color ramp with positive and negative. So the red states are seeing more food insecurity, and the blue states are seeing improved food security. So an interesting way to show it, instead of showing us two plots change over time, just calculate the difference and show us the change over time. Okay, wildlife trade. This one, ooh, I just copied her slides right in here and they translate nicely. Radar plot. So again, I don't want to go into the details here, but we're talking about importing and exporting of protected species. Oh, never played this as a PowerPoint before. Sorry. So the big exporters as a pyramid plot, and then the importers of protected wildlife. And then medium protection, the most protected. So we're exporting and importing the most protected wildlife. And anyway, really data rich, great way to show the data. And then a tree, oh, for goodness sakes, a tree plot here, or a tree map embedded in a bar chart. So we've talked a lot about increasing data density, and this is one way to do that. Show corresponding plots right next to each other and yeah, increase your data density that way. Okay, and then last but not least, she created a kind of a unique symbology where we've got export and import as arrows pointing different directions. And she was trying to draw attention to these guys up here. But again, pay attention to the annotations and text hierarchy. This is our famous Sally's submission from last year, Nothing Natural About Natural Disasters. And again, notice the really fluid format, no boxes. She's usually using the movement on the page to kind of draw your eye down the area plot to the round bubble taking place of a bar chart, and then up to the global deaths caused by natural disasters, back up to the title. So great movement on the page. Numbers to help kind of reinforce how you're supposed to take this in. Really nicely done. Meant to be a static image. And then this one, which is unfortunately very data dense, but vertical, so a little bit hard to get on a PowerPoint slide. But global climate change, social equity. So here, again, using Gestalt principles a little bit differently for proximity, but really nice flow on the page. We can clearly see this data. She's using the negative space here for her title and annotations, a different set of information here, and then increasing the data density by embedding a story inside this stacked bar chart. And then this one here is a comparison between urban land development and CO2 emissions in the EU. Bubble chart, and you can see this was put in a PowerPoint, but it exists as a story, so you can pull interactive features. Using groupings to highlight the heavy hitters. And then this is a nice use of graphics in the background. I've talked to a couple of you about maybe employing something like this. You have to be a little bit careful that they're not red like an area plot in the background. But yeah, some really pushing the boundaries on how we're displaying some of this data. Another example of using country outlines as your marks, and a great use of annotation to just call attention to the features that should be called out, and some more graphics in the background. This one we do have, you can see there's the two area plots, but in the background is just a silhouette of refinery. So here it kind of looks like a graphic, but the annotation lines, the leader lines, help us understand that this is actual data. So pretty artistic. I think that's it. Hopefully that's inspiring, and if you have any questions, let me know.